We are learning heartbreaking new details about the mother who drove her van into the Hudson River, killing herself and 3 of her children. LaShonda Armstrong left a note on her Facebook page saying, "I'm so sorry. Everyone, forgive me, please, for what I'm going to do. This is it." Armstrong's 10-year-old son managed to get out of the van that went underwater. The woman who stopped to help him describes the boy as both courageous and terrified as he told her what happened.
He's in the car and he thinks that they're just going for a drive. And I said, "Tell me what else happened." And he said, "Well, we were just going for a drive, and Mom was driving the car frantically. She was speeding. And by the time they got down by the ramp, he was like, Mommy, what are you doing? Stop, stop, stop," you know? And she was like, get into the back seat. So he went to the back seat, and she went to the back seat as well and cradled all the children with her in her arms and said, if I'm going to die, you're all going to die with me. 2 or 3 times she said that. So he broke free from her, but she was still holding on to him because he was wearing a pair of green pants, and she was holding on to his pants. But he broke free from her and went outside the driver's side. I'm presuming, I think it was the driver's side window, that he was able to roll down a little bit and get out. But at the last minute, when he was leaving to go out the window, he heard his mother saying, "I made a terrible mistake, I made a mistake." So she came from the middle of the row to the driver's side and tried to reverse the car back out. But at that time, she was too much in the water at that point.
That's what he's telling me.
Yeah, too much in the water at that point to even leave. So he said the best thing I could do, Maeve, he said, was go up for help. And he said, no one stopped for me, no one was stopping for me. And he said, "Thank you so much for stopping for me." He said it about 15 times. "Thank you for stopping for me, thank you for stopping."
Brian says the boy felt guilty for not saving his brothers and sisters. We want to go beyond the headlines and talk about the warning signs to look for cases like this and about what can be done to help the surviving child cope with the trauma that he has been through. Erik Fisher is a licensed clinical psychologist in practice here in Atlanta. And thank you so much, Dr. Fisher, for joining us. I mean, this is heartbreaking when you hear those kinds of details coming from a 10-year-old child.
Absolutely heartbreaking.
What does he need to overcome?
Well, there's a couple issues here. First, you have to not only take into account the trauma he's experienced, but this sounds like his mother was in a pretty tumultuous relationship for a number of years. And what you're looking at are attachment issues in terms of what's the strength of the attachments that he's had with his mother, with his siblings. It sounds like he was parentified at a very early age. One of the comments that I heard from another story was that he was saying it was his job to teach his brothers or siblings to swim, and he didn't do it this last summer. So he's got a lot of survivor's guilt that's already set in already, and he's going to be dealing with that. The post-traumatic stress issues will depend on how he deals with this situation in terms of the support system he has around him. He's in state custody right now in care, and it's going to depend on the consistency of the people who they put him in care with, as well as the support network he's going to have therapeutically, family-wise, foster care-wise. All those things throughout the long term are going to be important, because not only this is going to be processed now at age 10, but at often different developmental ages throughout his life, he's going to revisit this trauma in different ways. So he's got a long road to hoe here.
A lot of kids obviously don't have to go through what he did, but in general, do children, are they resilient when it comes to tragedy, or are they more sensitive? Do they take it harder? How do you help children in general cope with loss?
Well, personally, when I was 8, my brother died tragically, and he was an older brother, and that was very difficult for me. And what I was able to do with it was I turned it into life happens for me, not to me. And that's a critical word, for versus to, because things that happen in our life we can see as opportunities to grow and learn, or they can bury us and we can get buried underneath them. So I think, again, it's partly that individual's temperament, their support system again, and how he's going to look at this with how the people around him steer him and guide him in this way. How
did you turn it around for yourself?
I think part of it was our family stayed close. We had a very close family that supported each other, and also we just kept working through it. And a lot of families fall apart in tragedy. The difficulty with him is I don't know exactly all the family he's going to have around him. In some ways, if he can start anew with a very supportive system, that can be good, and especially if they're helping him, he's got to talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. He's got to be able to get that out and not bury it inside and feel like he has to be strong. parentified at a young age. A lot of times kids feel like they have to be strong and hide their emotions. And if his mom was in a tumultuous relationship and it sounded like she may have had some dependent features, she might have really leaned on him a lot. So all these are moderating factors in his recovery.
How do you convince a child, because you say you were 8 when you lost your brother, how do you convince a child that it's not his fault? You know, they always put it on themselves.
That's a tough one, because guilt in our culture is often used as a weapon by people who want to control us. And what I say, the purpose of guilt is it lets us know when we've done something to somebody else we need to fix. He didn't do anything to anybody else he needs to fix. All he knows is he can't get his siblings back and he can't get his mom back. So that's something he's going to have to resolve. And again, if he's able to see, I can set myself free of this, I am alive, but I'm just really concerned for him about how much he's already taking on this responsibility. It's going to be his choice and what he does with this, really.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your own personal story as well as your insights.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.